Today we're going to make a little dish that I found the recipe for when I was digging through some old recipe cards. It's happened to be in some of them same cards, that recipe for the tamale pie. One of my mom's old friend's recipes, and this is a really good dish. Hadn't made it in a long time. I'm glad I found this recipe, but it's what we call Burgundy steak and mushrooms. You can serve it over rice or noodles. It's a really good dish, something that can be cooked on the stove top is what the original recipe was, but I found it turns out a lot better if you cook it on the stove top first and then you finish it in a slow cooker. So we can go ahead and get started on that this morning. Okay, I've got about 2.5 pounds of boneless beef short rib chunks. It's a really nice marbling on this beef. And a little bit of tenderloin mixed in there. Not tenderloin, I'm sorry. Top sirloin mixed in there too, chunks. Last night, you don't have to do this. I did just because I've been liking this marinating a lot lately. I marinated it in a little mixture of olive oil, a little balsamic vinegar, a little bit of honey, and salt and pepper, and a little bit of hoisin sauce. I think a little Worcestershire too. The same marinade I used for that flat iron steak in my other flat iron steak video. You can go back and check that if you want to, but this is an optional step. I just wanted to give this beef a little bit more flavor. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start with browning the beef. We're going to brown this beef over here in the cast iron pot. I got heat up. Let me turn the heat up a little bit more. We're going to check it. Make sure it's hot enough. Not quite. So I'm going to let this pot heat up just a little bit more. Okay, I think we got plenty hot now. So I'm going to go ahead and add that beef. Stab it around here, and we're just going to get a nice little sear on it. A little bit faster than that. Right out there. And this will add a lot of flavor instead of just throwing that beef in there cold and raw in the slow cooker. You really want to get this nice sear, this browning done on it. Won't take long. Put this line on there. See a little bit better. Wow, you can really smell it. Okay, so we're just going to do this in batches. It's all to be about good for the first batch. I'm going to let it go just a second here on this side, and then we're going to turn it in a minute. Not quite ready to be turned. But that beef is really good with that short ribs. Really good to use for this. This is a little bit more expensive. You can use all top sirloin if you got to. Let's go ahead and start flipping some of these guys. This first one's I put in the pot. Okay, so we just want to get a little bit of color. See that deep brown, a little bit on each side. And that's going to give it a lot of flavor. And help the texture out there a little bit too. We'll go ahead and get these flipped. Let them go a minute or so more on this other side. Okay, now that I got this batch pretty much brown on both sides, let you take a look at how I kind of like it to look. So if you see that just brown right there, have that little brown crust. You don't want to totally cook it. I'm going to take it, I'm going to put it over here in my crock pot, and we'll go on with the next batch. Okay, now that we're done sauteing the beef, we got this wonderful beef fat and juices in the bottom of the pan just sitting there simmering. It's going to be perfect for our next step. I'm going to pour in mushrooms. I got about 1 pound and a quarter of just chopped up white mushrooms, and we're going to saute these and let these start soaking up that beef fat, and then expelling some of their juices. So mushrooms get a lot of juice. So I can stir these around just for a minute. Let them suck that stuff up off the bottom of the pan. It'll be real good. Okay, now they've got coating that stuff. So let them sit here on about medium heat and simmer for a minute. I'm going to stir them every once in a while. Okay, now that these mushrooms have had a chance to cook down, cook a lot of that water out of them, I'm going to transfer them over into the other pot. Go ahead and just get me a slide spoon. Don't want to put all that juice over here. And I'll tell you what, talk about some good juice though. I'm going to keep using it. It's got the flavor of these mushrooms, that beef. Oh, it's just a wonderful elixir there. I'm going to scoop all these mushrooms out. And then we're going to let that juice sit there and cook down just for a minute to kind of reduce for our next step. Alright, got all my mushrooms out. Excuse me, I'm going to let this juice cook down just a little bit. Okay, now that the mushroom juice and everything has had a chance to reduce, we'll go ahead and hit it with a little mirepoix, little onions, carrots, and celery. Okay, just got a little frozen pack of that. And we'll let that cook down just for a minute. It's going to be some real good stuff there. That's going to give the stew a really nice base. Okay, now that the mirepoix is cooked down a little bit, I'm going to add a little bit of seasoning. I'm going to add a little bit of rosemary. Okay. It's about a teaspoon. Okay. A little bit of thyme. About a teaspoon. I'm used to getting all accurate with it. I'm going to stir that in there. Okay. And of course, you know, I can't cook without adding just a little bit of Slap Your Mama. You know, we gotta add something in there just to give it a little kick. You know, a little Slap Your Mama, yes sir. Alright. Now we're about to get ready for the next ingredient. Now I'm gonna add 2 cans of golden mushroom soup. It's good stuff. Not cream of mushroom, golden mushroom, concentrate. I think it's 10-ounce can. Golden mushroom. Let's see, this is really a beef mushroom dish for sure. If you like beef, you like mushrooms, you're going to like this for sure. Let me stir that in. Get mixed in with everything. Now we're going to come around and we'll get to the wine. I've got about 2 cups of Burgundy wine. You can use any kind of red wine that you like, I guess. Burgundy's going to be the best though. We're going to add that in there. And you know what? I think I'm going to add 1 more cup. Come over here and pour me another cup. You know what? Heck, we'll just add the rest here. Dang jug in there. Alright. Man, this is a nice flavor dish. I'm going to add a little bit of Worcestershire. Got about a tablespoon yet. And a little bit, actually basically about 1 bouillon cube, or I use a beef paste that's better than bouillon, and just dissolved it in about a 1/3 cup of water. I'm going to put that in there. Make sure I got all that good bouillon stuff in there. That's good stuff. Get that all off the bottom. There we go. And I'm going to stir this, and I'm going to bring it to just a slight simmer there, just to where it starts bubbling. Now the reason I'm doing this, bring it to a simmer here on the pot, and once it simmers, I'm going to let it simmer for about 10 minutes. So I'm going to try to cook a little bit of that alcohol out of the wine here before we put it in the crock pot, just to make sure, because we really don't want real strong alcohol taste. Of course, you know, alcohol, most of us going to cook out, but we're going to try to cook it out a lot of it before we get in that crock pot. Now see how I brought it to just barely bubbling here. It has this wonderful velvety texture. It's not too thin, or not too thick rather right now, because it's going to thicken up. It's not too thin either. We're just going to let it bubble like this, stirring it every once in a while for about 15 minutes. We're just going to take some of that edge off that wine, or the higher alcohol content. Let this go for about 15 minutes, then we'll transfer it over that crock pot. Looks wonderful though. And I tell you what, if you got guests coming over, staying with you or something, you cook this dish, and while it's cooking, it's going to make your house smell wonderful. They're going to be just chomping at the bit to get to this. This is probably the best smelling dish. I really wish you could smell it. When it's sitting there slow cooking all day, and that wine, and the mushrooms, and that beef, that aroma is just wonderful. You gotta try it. See, now I got my robo stir involved. Whatever you do, you don't want your wine just sit there and boil. I got it turned down as low as it can go right now. I might even turn it off and let it cool a little bit more because it's bubbling just a tad too much. You don't want to boil wine. What you want to do is just simmer it and let some of that alcohol evaporate. Okay, so it's been cooking about 15 minutes. You can see how it's reduced down the side. I'll add one more thing, just to sweeten it, just give it a little tiny sweet note a little bit, but not too sweet. I got some molasses here. I'm going to add, well, just probably about a tablespoon and a half molasses. And this is going to give it a nice, little bit of subtle sweetness, not too sweet like adding sugar or anything. But I think it's going to be ready now to add to my crock. So we'll go ahead and get everything transferred over. We got my crock pot over here. I went ahead and put that beef and the mushrooms in here earlier, keep it on low because you don't want to just let partially cooked meat sit out and start to get cool. That can grow bacteria. So now I'm going to pour in this wonderful wine mushroom miracle base here. Oh, it smells fabulous. Okay. Now clean that pot. I'm going to stir this in. Let everything mingle around. All this beef, all these mushrooms. Wonderful, wonderful. The smell is just fantastic. Now, I'm going to go ahead and set this guy on low on my particular crock pot for 10 hours. Should be at work for about 8. So when I come home, this ought to be just fabulous. I'm telling you, this is a really, really good dish. Okay, now the stew, or the Burgundy beef and mushrooms, has been cooking for a good about 8 hours. And we saw that oil's coming to the top. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my spoon, my ladle, press it just like you do in any other sauces to kind of defat the sauce and get that oil off the top. We'll do that until I get most of this oil off the top. Okay, now I've defatted this much of the stew there, and you can see these beautiful mushrooms and this beef. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get a lot of this beef and mushrooms out of here. As you can see, I'm just removing the beef and mushrooms and the carrots and everything from the sauce because we're going to thicken this sauce up. And I want all this beef in there while I'm thickening it up. It's going to be wonderful. So we're going to go ahead and get most of this stuff out, most of the big chunks. Okay, now I've covered the meat, the mushrooms, and set them aside. Next step, strain off the gravy. Strain off that beautiful sauce. Just let it get here into this pitcher. And we're going to start us on a roux. Okay, now I'm getting started on the roux. I got half a cup of oil, half a cup of butter. I just let the butter melt in the oil. I turn my fire off. Just get everything mixed around. Once it be cooled down, I'm going to add my flour. Some more root guy over here. I'm going to add about a cup of flour. Start off with a half cup. About a half cup there. Go ahead with another almost half cup. It's about 3/4 cup flour. Now I'm going to turn my heat on. On a medium heat. Get my rooster. Actually, first, I'm going to start off with my spatula. This is for any of you that hadn't seen me make a roux, and most of you have. But we just want to get everything stirred up. Now, one thing about a roux, like I said, for those of you that hadn't seen this, you cannot stop stirring it. If you stop stirring the roux, it's going to burn. What the purpose is here is we're going to cook this flour. We're going to brown this flour. We'll stir it and get it mixed up good with this oil and this butter. Now I'm going to put my rooster in there. Get this mixed up here. This kind of looks like a paste. Don't worry about them lumps. They come out of there soon enough. Okay, that's good. Now let's put the roux guy down in there. Let him start doing his job. See how he's stirring around? We're going to keep him stirring. We're going to keep this on medium heat and we'll let it go for a bit. Let it go at least 10 minutes. And when your roux starts to really bubble up like this, you can turn it down a little bit. But you want to stir it and make sure every little piece gets stirred. Because if the piece gets missed, it's going to burn. It's going to run your roux. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it down a little bit lower heat. Okay, now I got my roux guy moved to the back burner there. There'll be another pan here. Now I've got some boiling water over there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to cook me some egg noodles in the boiling water. Okay, we're going to get that going while this roux finishes up. Okay, check out the color of this roux. See how it's like a caramel color? That's just what we're looking for. I'm going to take it off the heat. Okay, we're going to keep on stirring it. You got to keep on stirring. It'll really burn. I'm going to put this big pan back over here. Let's see. Turn this heat off. Most of this heat off. I'm going to add a little bit of this roux to this big pan. Alright, so let me get something to measure it with. I'll be right back. So you don't necessarily have to measure it, but I'm going to put a good maybe, see, scoop or two. I like to just make a set amount of roux and just use as much as I need. A little bit in there. That's maybe a 1/4 cup of roux. Now I'm going to turn this burner on. Medium heat. Okay, get this roux spread out. Now I'm going to add that stock back. So I got about 3 cups of that liquid, or 4 cups that we used. Add this. I've let it cool though. I'm going to add it back to the mixture, to the roux. Now what this is going to do, it should thicken this up. And if you don't thicken it up enough, at least I know I've got the rest of that roux. We can put some more roux in here. I'm going to go ahead and keep stirring this. Incorporate everything. Actually, I'm going to get a little whisk. Get a little whisk. Go around here. Put a little tab more of that roux in there. Just get everything real nice. Still doing this over about a medium heat. This is going to make this juice thicken up. All this wonderful stock with that meat and that wine, everything else. Let's go ahead and keep whisking around like this until I see everything mixed up. I don't see more lumps or anything. And now the next step is going to be just let it sit there for a second, still for about a minute or two, until it starts just bubbling up on its own. But leave it on about a medium heat, medium low heat. Okay, once you see it just start bubbling like that, that means it's starting to get thick. You give it another whisk, You can see how nice, thick and velvety it's gotten. Perfect. Let's see. I'll take a spoon. There on my whisk. Take a little spoon here. And just see how it kind of coats like that. Real good here. Real good. I'm going to let it simmer for a minute more without stirring it. Okay, I let it bubble up again. You notice how I'm just stirring it now. It's nice, real consistency. You don't want to just add more roux, because if you do that, you can always get it thicker. Add more roux, but you can't really get it thinner. Or add water or something. So what I do is I let it bubble up for a second, standing still. Now I stir it and I check the thickness again. I'm going to let it bubble up one more time, I think. Okay, so let's get ready to serve. First, I've got a wonderful bowl of these egg noodles. I'm going to take some of this beef, these mushrooms. Look how tender. I mean, it's just falling apart. Literally. I mean, it's just like a beautiful roast or something. These mushrooms. I tasted this beef and it's just fabulous. And just a nice layer of the beef. And mushrooms. Put some little mushrooms on there. Okay. Get that out of the way. I'm going to go ahead with some of this sauce. It's wonderful wine. Burgundy wine sauce. Perfect consistency. Let's go ahead and just coat this with some sauce. That just amazing. And the smell, I really wish you could smell this. More of that bubbling, piping hot sauce. Okay. Maybe a few green onions. Sprinkle there on top would be good. A little bit of bread. That's a meal right there. I tell you what, this is going to be awesome. Okay, now for the real test. Let's give it a taste. Wow. It was perfect. Go ahead and taste some of this beef. Just to show you how tender. I mean, that beef just fell apart right there on the fork. Very, very nice, complex taste. You really taste the richness, fruitiness of that wine. You can also taste the real beefy flavor from the meat and the mushrooms. Smoothness that roux gave it. It was really something else. You gotta try this for sure. This is one of my better dishes. It's really, really good. I'm gonna tell you what, that beef is super, super tender. Awesome. Really. You will try this one. It's really good.